Okay. Once again, so very grateful to have this conversation with Dr. Karen Dickson. And Dr. Dickson, who's a therapist and a life coach, and welcome to the Work from Home Self Care Conference. And I was so intrigued. I know you and I, our paths have crossed in the trauma education world. But what brought you to become a life coach and a therapist? So curious and inspired by your story.
All right. So, Marty, what brought me to be a life coach and a therapist as a child, I was always helping people, my mother said. She said I would give away my coat, my shoes. I would come home and wouldn't have certain articles. I've always wanted to make sure that people understood their value. And the older that I got, I really not only now do I want you to understand your value, but I want to show you how you can become to a state of wholeness. So if I had another middle name, it would be Karen State of Wholeness Dickson. So I'm all about people walking in their wholeness, walking in their destiny, walking in their purposes. For me, choosing that career because also too, I am clergy, I am a bishop, I oversee different churches and fellowships. So having that background, seeing people come into the church who were always in need, and I always looked at that like, okay, this is a hospital, but we have to be able to help people on many different sectors. Okay, so this is why, and what pushed me to go into as a coach and a therapist. I found that when you say therapy or therapist, some people would take it as a negative connotation and they would automatically say, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need help. So then I had the wonderful idea of just saying, well, come on, let me help you and let's coach you back to wellness.
Wow.
Let's coach you back to a good place, a stable place, a place of peace, a place where you can actually see yourself thriving and moving in a positive manner. So that's how I got to where I am. And that's just who I am. It's all about people. It's all about helping, having them have a healthy mind because there is no disconnection. So the mind, the emotions, the spiritual, all of that, it's all connected. If one thing is affected, the other is affected as well. So that's why I'm where I'm at right now.
Wow, that's a powerful and inspiring story. And I hear about the wholeness and I hear
Hmm.
about wellness. And I'm thinking about the full person and leading up to self compassion and
Hmm.
self love, which brings us to self care. So, this is all a part of a larger, in terms of paradigm, people moving forward in terms of advocating for their wellness.
Yes. And I think it's very important that when we look at the concept of self care, we look at that concept and we say, we can even know what we are to do, what we need to do. But a lot of times I find that the common denominator is that we don't have a lot of self love for ourselves. How is it that we can love everybody else and so many others, but we forget about loving ourselves? And I find that that is a very big concern when I'm dealing with clients, when I'm just coaching people. The love, they don't know how to love themselves. For
So,
some
as
reason,
givers,
we've lost them.
when people are givers, Dr.
Yeah.
Dixon, how do we get them to understand who they are and attune to their mind and body?
So we know that giving is something that as humans we should do. But I think sometimes we cross the line of where we're giving so much that we tend to forget about that we need to give to ourselves. So, to help individuals understand how important it is to give to themselves, and again, let's look at the analogy of the car. So, if you're in the car, you look at your needle, the car is running low on gas, and you right near a gas station, but you'll say to yourself, you know what? Let me just ride to the next point. I'll get it in a minute. We're always pushing and pushing and pushing, thinking that we have more time. It's the same thing with changing our mindsets. We're the vehicle. We're the vehicle that will help ourselves and help others. But we continue to say, oh, I'm good. I don't need to do anything right now. I can wait. I can wait. And then we come to the point where the gas has run out, you're burnt out, and now you're thinking. When you're burnt out, your thinking changes, everything changes. So you have to now say, you know what? I need to take care of myself, which is the vehicle that will help me take care of others. How do we do that? We can do that through just like Reiki, EFT, TFT, those type of avenues. Or how about just reading, meditating, putting yourself in a place of subconsciousness and self-consciousness so that you can be aware of when your body, it was a book out called The Body Keeps the Score. Your body tells you what it needs. It tells you what it wants. We go through situations sometimes where we'll have this craving for like spinach. Okay. And that's our body speaking to us, telling us, you need that spinach. So it's the same thing with your mental capacities. If you don't listen to what your body tells you, your body will tell you when you need to rest. Your body will tell you when you need to eat differently. Your body will tell you when it needs to have some exercise. But as the car runs out of gas and we're at the station, we always want to put it off and say, I'll get it later. Let me keep pushing. So we really have to do, it's more about positive reinforcement. It's all about loving yourself and realizing how important you are to you. But you being important to you will then help you be important to others.
Oh, and what you mentioned about it being a mindset, and being able to be attuned to our bodies, because my body tells me all day that I need something. It tells me by aching a little bit, I feel tension.
Yes.
There may be some stress in parts of my body. I may get hungry shortly after I've eaten. So there's all sorts of weird, different body sensations. And many times I may not listen to my body. And that's a real confusing point for me, is to, like you mentioned, the needle on my fuel tank is definitely saying it needs some fuel, and yet I may deny that and try to uh, struggle through and try to soldier through and be tougher. But yet, if I would meet the needs, I might be able to be stronger on the other end.
That's right. It's all about, Marty, supply and demand. It's all about supply and demand. If you know that this needs to be supplied to your body, is demanding you to supply it, this is what you need to do. Each individual is very different. We're made up very differently. I think a lot of things too that I've noticed come from different cultures. If you didn't have a family that was strong-willed about taking care of your physical bodies, taking care of your mental and emotional state, this is something that someone now has to teach you because you didn't learn it. So a lot of times we can't do what we don't know.
Wow, that's
So
powerful.
yeah, so I
So
think
self-care
that
can be a learned behavior.
it's a learned behavior. So I think that with the conference that you're doing now, this is where we're teaching individuals how to do self-care mentally, physically, emotionally. Because if, again, if you have not been taught it, how can you do it? And we
So now
can,
I hear my body talking to me. I understand the benefits of self-care, and now I can actually learn strategies to be able to meet the
right,
needs of my
right.
body during the day.
Right, right. And so this is, I think this is why this is so good with your conference, because it will enable individuals to understand the importance of self-care coming from a variety of avenues. Okay. Because if you're, think about it, if your self-care is not on target emotionally and mentally, how are you going to have it on target physically? This is like an athlete, right? If you have an athlete and they're doing a sport and they're really been raised up in this sport, you find that a lot of their motivation comes through emotionally and mentally first before it is, transferred into the physical actions that they do. You can move physically. You can bounce a ball. You can throw a football. You can kick a soccer ball, but you're just kicking, you're just throwing. But if you have the mental ignition, I call it ignition, and that emotional ignition, it gives you a whole different flavor and view to your physical abilities when you're playing a sport.
So it's all about feeding those emotions and the
Right.
mental needs as well as the physical needs.
Yeah, we must. We must. And I think a lot of times we ignore that piece. We think that we could just do strength training and all of this stuff. But if you don't have the emotional and physical piece, you're not doing really any strength training because it comes from here. There's a reason why our head is on top. Everything starts here and then it filters down. So, self care is, from my perspective, self care, the first important vital thing that you have to realize and deal with is the emotional and the mental part of self care. So then a person can move into that state of wholeness by their mindset, by their thoughts. Thoughts can take captivity to you. They could be negative, they could be positive. But if it's a negative thought, it holds you captive. And how do you let go of that negative thought? It's through mental and emotional self care.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Karen Dickson. What a valuable conversation. And again, really moving into a different mindset, shifting a paradigm in terms of who we are and what we need, and meeting our own needs through self care. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome.